Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Future Justice Talks. I'm Tehreem Justice Folly, student at Rehan School Online Academy, and I'm passionate about innovating and speaking the truth. Today, we have a very extraordinary guest with us today. He is Paul Bowen, a philosopher and digital creator who studied philosophy at Yale University. Paul shares deep thoughtful ideas about society, government, freedom, and how we can live better together. He also uses creative thought experiments to help people think in new ways. Well, welcome to Future Justice Talks. We're honored to have you here today, and I'm excited to explore your ideas and learn from your perspectives. Thank you so much for joining me in Future Justice Talks. I hope you are great and doing all good. So, Paul, starting from my first question, it is Paul, you studied philosophy at Yale and share your ideas online. Can you tell us about your journey and what and why you dedicated to share your thoughts with the world?
Well, I think I think of myself as a citizen of the world. It's true I live in the United States and legally I'm a citizen of the United States, but I try to excuse me a second. Yeah. Uh, I try to act like a citizen of the world, and I try to make a contribution. Now I'm retired now, so it's not a matter. My work is not a matter of money. I mean, it never was that much, but but I'm trying to do good for the world, and I think people can do good for the world according to what talents they have. Now, I seem to have a talent for abstract thought, for philosophy. That's what I'm good at. Uh, Many other things I'm not good at all. So it makes sense for me to give my philosophical thoughts to the world, and that's what I'm doing with my Facebook account. That's my
Wow.
answer.
Wow, amazing. Oh, that's so interesting that you want to help the world, the peoples, and you are right now doing it on your Facebook. It's so interesting. So, Paul, moving to my next question, you talk about big ideas like government and society. How do you take these ideas and make them useful for everyday life?
Well, I think that they're useful if they can make everyday life better by making society better. Now, sometimes you make your life better with some particular action, uh, but uh, but if your society is bad, then you're probably going to be miserable no matter what you do, right? So it is important to have a good society. So I have tried to understand more deeply what makes a society good. And I'm also interested in how we can get there. But I find that question to be very difficult. It's very difficult to change society. Um, but nevertheless, I do think about that also. Uh, but I think trying to make your society good is just as important as going shopping. They're both important. And so since that's where I think my talents lie, I focus on that. I also go shopping. But but uh, that's my answer.
Wow, it's amazing, Paul. So, can you tell me how are you planning to change the society?
Well, I think the kind of changes that I'm talking about have to happen not by violence. but by insight, by enlightenment. People have to recognize that we're really in a terrible situation and we have to do something about it. And we are perhaps destroying our environment, which will result in our destruction. We are risking war. Well, we have wars, right? We have several wars right now. I don't happen to be in one of them. I'm grateful for that. But we have many wars going on, people starving, uh, and all kinds of bad things are happening. And we should not take this world for granted. We should say, no, this is a bad thing. We will not tolerate it anymore. But I think nonviolent action, if it is better, perhaps sometimes one has to be violent. I don't know. But I think violence just destroys things. It does not build things up. And so ultimately, what builds things up is love and insight, intelligence, looking reality in the face and not pretending that it is something different from what it is. This is what makes things better. And so I think that nonviolence is the way to go. And one kind of nonviolent action is called direct action. Direct action is when you just act as though the world you want is already here. Okay. And if enough people do that, it will be here because society is just what people do. If a number of people say, we will not go to war, then there won't be any war. Uh, Maybe someone will invent robots, but to fight. I mean, people can do the most amazingly stupid things, but leaving that aside, I think if people don't support war, then no one will build the robots anyway, right? So uh, it's necessary that people believe, they have to believe that it's possible to do better. And so I think that belief and to have a picture of what the world would be like if it were better. Okay. If you're used to a world where there's war and pollution and all this stuff, then you may not really have a clear idea of what a better world would be like. So a lot of what I do is to try to say, well, look, the world could look like this. We could act like this. And uh, so that's a lot about what I do. So I guess to try to answer your question more briefly, uh, the we have to conceive of a better world, and then we have to just do it. So that's my quick answer.
Wow, amazing. So, Paul, what is the biggest war right now in front of you? If we stop it, we can change the society.
Well, well, my country is almost in a war. That is, we have a rebellion against the government. And the government, I'm on the side of the rebellion. The government is terrible. And we should overthrow it. We should resist it, and we should overthrow it. I don't know if that's a full-scale war. Now, another war is in Sudan. In Sudan, people are just being massacred and they're starving to death in that war. And as far as I can see, the war is just about who's going to be in command. You have these two armies, and they're fighting each other. For what? To see who wins. That's, and meanwhile, the people are starving to death and being massacred. Uh, and that to me is an example of how really stupid war is. It's not improving the lives of the people in Sudan. It's making their lives terrible. And it doesn't matter which side wins as far as I can see. They're both just people who want to rule Sudan. They want to be in charge. And so they're willing to form an army and direct it and fight so that they can be in charge rather than somebody else. And that is just so egocentric. I mean, it's just so selfish. I can't express it how horrible that is, but that's the way it is. And so I'm happy not to be in that war, but conceivably I might be sometime if the society of the United States falls apart, and right now it's falling apart. Uh, so who knows what it will look like in a couple of years. So that's my best answer.
Oh, yeah, it's true, Paul. So you have written a lot about government. What do you think is the main purpose of a good government?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Thank you. All your questions have been wonderful. I like them very much. And well, the main purpose of a good government, in my view, is essentially to do two things and balance them off. One is people should flourish as much as possible. And by flourishing, I mean they can use their abilities to do things that are meaningful to them, and they can be successful at that. Okay. So for some people, that might be raising a family, it might be religious observance, it might be a job that they do. And these things use their abilities. Now, if someone is doing a job, but it's really boring, then they're not flourishing because they're not using all their abilities. Okay. So the main purpose of government is to try to arrange society. Well, I'm saying there are two main purposes. I'll get the other one in a minute. Uh, but they people should flourish well. And I think that it's possible for us all people to flourish very well. It's just that we use all our energy in these stupid things like war. If we could just turn that energy somewhere else, then we could all be flourishing instead of starving to death. Okay. Okay. Now, what's the other thing? The other thing is equality. Um, You shouldn't have some people who are richer than other people, or more powerful than other people, or have more prestige than other people. Okay, so part of the function of government is to arrange that people are equal. And this is going to take some doing because when people compete with each other, sooner or later someone wins. And some people will rise to the top and everybody else will more or less go to the bottom. So we have to cooperate with each other instead of competing. And government can be a way that we cooperate with each other. We communicate with each other, we make agreements. And in this way, we arrange that everyone is equal. And these two things should persist over time. They should be sustainable. If you have just a moment when everybody is flourishing, well, that's good. But then suppose there's a terrible crash. Sometimes periods of great prosperity are followed by crashes. And so I say egalitarian flourishing over time is what we're looking for. That's my answer.
Amazing. Wow. So, Paul, we talk about balancing the fairness and overall happiness. How should a society decide when helping people equally might overall build our success?
Well, I guess you just have to keep your eyes open. Uh, of course, you have to have free access to information. It's very important that people have free access to information. Otherwise, how could they make such a decision? And if there's disagreement, which there probably there surely will be. I mean, if you have two human beings, you have three opinions, right? So, uh, in that case, we use a democracy to make the decision. First, we try to discuss it. We try to discuss it in a polite and logical way. And maybe some people will be convinced to agree with the others. But if that doesn't happen, but we need to get on with life, then we use democracy. We vote, and people, of course, have to be willing to abide by the vote when it is taken. Now, to address more directly the question you ask, uh, that can happen. That can happen. And there are some cases that are absurd. For example, there was a British philosopher who raised this question. What if there is one blind person on the planet for the sake of equal flourishing? Should everyone else blind themselves so as to be equal? Well, that just doesn't make sense, right? So I don't know if I can formulate a principle. But I think if people use their common sense, uh, think about this, then they can find a good balance. I mean, anyone can see that that would be absurd to blind everyone else just to create equality. Also, I say when I say equality, I don't mean that everybody has to be the same. But what is equal is how well they are flourishing. Okay, that's the kind of equality I'm talking about. If But different people flourish for different reasons. So one person might flourish by playing the violin, okay, but another person might be tone deaf, okay. So it doesn't mean that everybody has to be alike in order to have the kind of equality I'm talking about. It just means they should flourish as well as the other person. I'm sorry my answers are so long, but these things are important to me. Okay, that's my answer.
Wow, it's so amazing and interesting. So, as you think freedom is important in your areas, what does freedom mean to you, and why is it important for people to live well?
Okay, well, freedom, freedom to me, what I call meaningful freedom which is what I'm interested in, is having lots of opportunities. Then you can choose, but these opportunities have to be meaningful to you. Okay. If I say, look here in this box, I have 10 million hydrogen atoms, and you lucky person, you can choose any one you want. Okay, well, who cares? The hydrogen atoms are more or less all alike, right? That's not giving you a meaningful choice. To give you a meaningful choice would be to say, well, first of all, we're going to assume that you have all the basic needs of life, and then we let you choose ways to flourish. Okay, because people basically want to flourish. It's not like you have to force them to flourish. That's what they want. So then, so you give them opportunities to get an education, for example. That will help their flourishing if it's a good education, of course. I assume it's a good one. And give them up if they want to raise a family, then you make it possible for them to raise a family. You make sure they have a home and a source of income and so on. So uh, you're giving them opportunities to flourish, but you're giving them a choice. And I think that's very important because uh, people need to have control over their life. You know, it's somebody can pile you with gifts, but if they don't let you choose between the gifts or anything like that, then something is still missing there, right? it's it's you want to be able to choose the gifts yourself. And I think that's why freedom meaningful freedom is very important. It's a kind of flourishing. You can't flourish fully unless you have freedom of choice. So that's my answer.
So amazing. So, Paul, you often use thoughtful experiments like imagining always studying a mouse. Why do you use these, and how do you help people understand big ideas?
Mhm. Well, yes, I hope it helps people to understand ideas that are otherwise abstract. I don't know how. Perhaps I could do better, but this is me trying to be more comprehensible. Uh, if you think of I'm hoping that if you think of these aliens looking at the mouse, you will be able to figure out. They will be able to figure out because they're very smart and know lots of science. They'll be able to figure out what it means for this mouse to flourish. And uh, the reason for that is because I want to show. Well, of course, the idea of flourishing is just interesting to me in itself, but I also have another reason. And my other reason is that I want to show that that flourishing is an objective property of something. If you look at a mouse, you realize that it's not going to be flourished by studying mathematics. Mice just can't do that. Food to eat, and by watching out for foxes, by that's what it takes for. And once you understand how a mouse is put together, you understand that this is true. For example, mice will avoid foxes by being always on the alert uh, to hear if something is coming or to see if something is coming. They're built that way. So now I would say the same thing for human beings. If you understand how human beings are put together, you will know, or a particular human being, because as I said, they flourish differently. If you see how a human being is put together, you know what it means for it to flourish. And now I have another reason for that. What is that? It is because some people say, oh, flourishing is just subjective. You know, it's it's a matter of opinion what makes somebody flourish. But this means there's no ground for us to make decisions. If it's not an objective quality, there's no ground for us to make decisions. So I want to show that we can come to an agreement by studying human beings. For example, we know that human beings won't flourish for very long if they don't get trace amounts of the element selenium. Right? Now, how do we know this? Because of science. But this is a fact about what makes people flourish. If they don't get that selenium, they will get sick and die. Uh, that's just a fact. Okay, it's an objective fact that human beings need a bit of selenium to flourish. Not too much. It's poisonous if you eat a lot of it. But so once again, I've given you a terribly long answer, but I think that's the kind of answer it takes. I think. I hope you don't mind. That's my answer.
Sure. Well, so moving to our last question, looking at your back life and work, what is the most important lesson you've learned, and what do you hope people remember from you?
Hmm. Oh, that's a tough one. Oh boy, that is a tough one. But it's good. It's good to ask tough questions. The easy questions are boring. But let's see. What is the most important lesson you've learned? I don't know if I can answer that directly because I'm learning all the time. It's not like there was some particular lesson that, oh, yes, now my life is better. Uh, there are lots of lessons like that. If you knew me when I was a young man, you would see that I was a very unhappy person. I'm much more happy now. And I think it's because of things I've learned about life and about myself on the way. Uh, I could say one of the more important ones is when I was young, I thought that the way to show how smart you are is by criticizing everything. Oh, that's no good. That's no good. That's no good. But at some point, I realized no, what really takes creativity is to fix things, not just to complain about them. So I decided, all right, I'm not going to be happy with just saying what's wrong. I mean, I think lots of things are wrong, but I want what I really want to do is not to spend a lot of time pointing out how bad they are, but to try to figure out how to fix them. And that takes much more intelligence and creativity. Anyone can just complain, right? And so I think when I realized that and I changed my mind and I decided to say, I'm going to be more positive now. I think that was a uh, very important change for me. Yeah, that's my answer.
Oh, Paul, thank you so much for joining us on Future Justice Talks. It's been so amazing to hear your ideas about freedom, society, government, and how we can create a better world. I know your audience will learn from your thoughts and reflections. To everyone listening, make sure to check out Paul Bowen's posts, ideas online to explore more of his philosophy and digital work. Well, it's been an honor having you with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your vision and work with me today. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoyed. I'll meet you soon. Till then, take good care of yourself. Bye bye.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I think you asked wonderful questions, and uh, I am honored to have had this interaction with you. And I hope you and all your family and friends will flourish like crazy. Okay. So have a good one.
Thank you so much.